Hello. Welcome to the celebratory edition of Real Hawk Talk post-game show. I am Brian Nemhauser at Hawkblogger on Twitter. I will be joined here shortly by Nathan Ernst, and he may be our only other today. The other fellows are so overwhelmed with excitement that they couldn't quite handle post-game festivities. So lots and lots and lots to talk about. We will likely take a lot of questions from you guys. So hopefully you guys are in chat. Hopefully you're having an awesome Sunday afternoon after what was a up and down and up and down and finally up victory for the Seahawks. There's no such thing as a bad victory in the NFL. We hear that all the time. There is absolutely no such thing as a bad victory on the road. So I don't care how many mistakes you make, how ugly it looks. You went on the road. I don't care if you got a backup quarterback that comes in. I don't care if, you fumbled it twice. I don't care if you got sacked a bunch in the first half. If you went on the road, especially in the second week of the season, it's a big deal. And just think about the difference between the way this team started this year versus the way the team started last year. And we'll talk more about that. As we do, I'm going to welcome aboard Nathan Ernst, who looks very professional in the polo right now. He may not be completely hooked up yet, but he's giving me the 1 second sign. He, unlike me, clearly has showered and changed for the day. I am still wearing my pajamas, and I'm not afraid to say it. So that is one of the glories of 10 a.m. starts, and I hope some of you are lounging around watching the show, enjoying this victory. Nathan, are you all good? Not quite yet? All right.
Nope.
Yes?
We're good now. I think I got it.
We're good. Good. Man, wow.
Yeah.
A lot to react to in that game. I am curious. There's a lot of ways to start. I just want to know your top of mind. What was your thoughts when you saw that game? You're watching that game.
My top of mind right now is they won. I had them going 11-5 when we did our predictions, and this was one of the 5 losses. And so, there's still, there's still opportunities for them to lose games that I thought they would win. But they're 2-0. They beat a pretty good team. I think on the road, they scored a bunch of points. There's a lot of stuff to pick at here. I'm a little concerned at how good they made Mason Rudolph look, but they won, and they won on the road, and they won a game that was kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, the first place I've got to start with you is play calling. What were your thoughts on the play calling?
So I liked it for the most part without having gone back and really looked at it. You brought up last week passing differently, not just passing more, but passing differently. And it felt like they did that. One thing that has been interesting is that, when I talk to people about, how much they should pass, there's a variety of opinions, but one of the ones that's kind of interesting is this kind of like a dichotomy between short passing and deep passing. And my thing has always been, there are some of these play action plays where they have literally just 2 routes on the field and they're both going deep, right? And those are clearly just shot plays. But largely, that's not really how a passing game works. You generally have a little bit of everything on any given play. And, I think we saw that a little bit where they were, especially later in the game. I missed the first half, so I can't speak to that at all. But they were hitting tight ends and they were hitting, Tyler Lockett pretty quick on stuff. And then, boom, you get a big touchdown play to DK, right? And so it's not an either or thing, right? What emphasis you put on it matters. How much of that play action shot play stuff you call obviously matters, the max protect stuff. But you can do all of it, and it worked. It seemed to work really good. They put a bunch of points. They looked like they were moving the ball pretty effortlessly at times. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's most exciting to me is that. The way I'd kind of describe it is I feel like they proved there is another way that they can win. like if they had just rolled out the same game plan on offense last week that they did this week that they did last week, where Pittsburgh clearly was getting home on pressure in the first half. That was the same thing was happening, maybe not quite as bad, but pretty bad. And instead of just folding up shop and going to 7-man lines with George Fant in there and running the ball up the middle on every handoff, they adjusted to short passes, swing passes, quick passes. And Russell Wilson was sitting there. And this is stuff that people say he can't do. Personally, I've been critical of them. I've never said Russell's incapable of being able to sit in the pocket and find players that are open. It's just they did that in 2015 in the second half of the year, but they seem to, for whatever reason, never call that kind of offense. And maybe Pittsburgh helped. Maybe they're playing a zone defense that made that possible. Who knows? But whatever the case was, they went to that type of offense, and Russell was like lights out today. I mean, 29 of 35 for 300 yards. And even though he was passing short, like you said, there were enough explosive plays. He was 8.6 yards per attempt. Like that is terrific efficient. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 131 rating. I think through 2 games, he's over 130 rating in both games. Like he is, you and I talked about this before the season. He looks like he's taken a step forward, like we thought he had. I haven't seen anything in the first 2 games that makes me feel differently about that. And so that's super exciting. And Nathan, the last time the Seahawks were 2-0 was 2013. The only time the Seahawks have been 2-0 during the Pete Carroll era was 2013. And if I'm correct in what I'm looking up here, the only other time before that, since 2000 was 2004 and 2003. But 2006. The Seahawks started 2-0 as well. But it is preciously rare for the Seahawks to start 2-0 in a season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I feel a ton differently about them through this point. But when we were going through doing our predictions and everything, and you and Evan were talking about winning the division, that didn't quite feel realistic to me. It wasn't really something I thought was in the cards for them. And it is now. Like, again, this was probably not a game they should have won. I mean, we'll see what the Steelers end up being. They're 0-2 right now, which is bad news for them. But they went on the road. They beat a team that has, historically been pretty good. And yeah, I mean, you can start to dream about, a first round bye, right? I mean, really all you need to probably do is split with the Rams. If you can steal one, you're really, you've got it all set up there for you. You do the rest of it right. So it's huge to be 2-0. Nothing guaranteed at this point, but it's obviously it's a great start.
Well, and I mean, if you look at, we'll get to their schedule here in a second, but I mean, we've talked about it even in the prediction show, if the Seahawks could get some of these games early, and if they are decent, if the Seahawks are a decent team, the schedule sets up reasonably well. A lot of the big contenders in the NFC are coming to Seattle, right? They've got the Saints in Seattle next week. They've got the Rams in Seattle, on Thursday Night Football. They've got they got the Falcons in Atlanta. That's not necessarily a contender. And they've got the Minnesota Vikings was the other one that's coming to Seattle, right? So that's potentially a really big deal. But I always end up starting to want to talk about what didn't go right, and we'll definitely get there because there's a few things I want to cover with you. Talk to me about 2 receivers, and we'll start talking about a couple others. Tyler Lockett catches 10 balls today in 12 targets for 79 yards, only 7.9 yards per catch. DK Metcalf, 3 catches, 61 yards in 7 targets with a touchdown, 20.3 yards per catch. Talk to me about what your thoughts were about their roles today and what you thought of how the Seahawks used them.
Ultimately, if Lockett ends up with something around an 8 yards per average catch, whatever that's supposed to be, that's going to be a little bit of a bummer. Obviously, he's great at a lot of things. He's great at taking the top off of a defense, but clearly they're not losing that with what they're getting out of DK. So I think Tyler definitely has that ability to be really good in that role. he kind of showed it today, even if it wasn't necessarily the most efficient, the best way to go about it. So yeah, those two are they're a pretty impressive duo. I mean, it's 2 games for DK, but we've seen him do a little bit of the short stuff. We saw him catch a ball today short and look pretty tough to bring down.
He trucked that dude.
Yeah. And obviously, Tyler can, do pretty much whatever he wants on the football field, it seems like. He's not going to run through anybody, but other than that. So it's really cool to see him, using them like that, using DK, getting those big chunk plays out of him, being able to do all kinds of stuff with Tyler all over the field. He still got the big chunk play last week. So, it's hopefully this isn't like the only thing. Like, I don't want him to end up with an 8 yards per catch average, but yeah.
I can't imagine that will be the case. And, it's just interesting. I think they're still trying to figure out. I mean, he's clearly got, 12 targets. That's more what we expected in terms of the amount of utilization for Tyler Lockett. And they might have overcorrected a little bit just trying to figure out how to get him the ball. But, I mean, he dropped one today. It was uncharacteristic. That would have been nice. I mean, he really could have ended up with 11 catches and 12 targets. It was along the sideline. It was a little bit off of his hands. But
he had 2 drops, right? Both of his.
Did he have 2 drops? I remember one.
I want to say both of them were drops that he didn't catch.
That's totally possible. But, Metcalf, one of the questions, okay, he had a good first game. Is that going to be a few and far between, or can he be an impact player each game? Like, he came in again, and like you said last week in the pod, one of the things that encouraged you about him was you could see that corners looked intimidated. And I think we saw it again today. Like, they were showing throwing back shoulder fades, which, by the way, like, not a clean system yet at all. Russ was throwing a lot of those passes inside, and they need to be outside so that he can make the play and not the corner. And he obviously has some work to do there as well, but the dude like is a handful. I mean, I think it's hard to imagine that this is going to be like a rarity. It seems like, I don't think you can count on it yet, but it seems like he's going to be a factor. But we gotta take a little victory lap about Malik Turner, don't we? I mean,
I wish I could. I think he had all 3 catches in the first half, and I didn't see a single one. So
he had 53 catches, 3 targets, 54 yards, 18-yard average.
Pretty good.
Turner, baby. I mean, everyone wants to talk about John Ursua, who we're excited about. Everyone wants to talk about Gary Jennings, who I don't know how many people are excited about at this point. But Malik Turner, like, those were 3. He had a really big play in the first half to help them get out of the end zone and pick up, like, maybe what was it? I'm going to look up here. Yeah, 30 yards. I mean, it's a big play. And it's nice to see. And I do, it's not just a joke. I do believe Malik Turner can be a helpful part for this offense. I don't think he's a number 1 or number 2, but I think he could be a number 4.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, he's pretty talented, and yeah, he keeps kind of doing stuff like this. I think this is probably his biggest day for his career so far, but he's just always ready to kind of make a play, it seems like, between preseason and what we've seen him in the regular season. So yeah, I'm excited to see him getting more opportunities.
What do we think about Rashad Penny? I mean, if we're talking about Malik Turner, we got to talk about Rashad Penny, or Evan would never forgive us.
So Penny's touchdown was how long?
It was 37 yards.
Okay. So that means it would be 9 carries for like 25 yards, which less good, but that's always a trap. You don't want to do that. I mean, you got to go through and take everybody's best carry out. That cut was beautiful, right? A lot of that opened up for him after the cut, but he made the cut. He got loose. Russ was downfield, and like a lot of times people give him credit for lead blocking, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, he was out there, sure. Like, no, this one he really helped on this one. So Penny, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of the typical Penny thing, but we got the big play out of him, and so hard to complain.
Yeah. I've been as outspoken about saying I have not seen special things from him, and I don't regret any of those comments. I call exactly what I'm seeing on the field, and I've always said I'd love for him to show me, like, prove me wrong or prove us wrong in terms of what he's capable of. That was a special cut. I mean, that was headed for maybe no gain on a key play, and he put his foot in the ground. Not every running back can make that play or has the vision or the physical ability. And then he was gone. when he's in space, he's shown some breakaway ability. He has shown that in past years, in past games. So I'm not like, my opinion of Rashad Penny is not 180 degrees different than it was before that play, but I'm really happy to see it. I'm really happy to know that he's capable of impacting the game in a positive way. And it wasn't just that carry to me. It was 3 or 4 or 5 other carries where he was taking the ball, decisively hitting the hole, taking 2 or 3 yards or 5 yards instead of like waiting at the line of scrimmage, looking for a hole to open up and getting 0 yards. So I thought he ran tough today, and I have really nothing but good things to say about his game.
I do think he ran tough today. Later on in the game, he had one where he put his foot in the ground, cut right into somebody, but knocked the dude back a yard or two. One of those where it would have been probably a no gain, and he ended up getting about 2 yards out of it. So that was nice. I will go ahead and just make everybody mad. I don't think that cut was special. I don't think that's a cut that most running backs can't make. I really don't. But but the bottom line is, you got to do it, right? I mean, he made the play. So whether somebody else could have or couldn't have, he was there, he got the chance, and he did it.
Robert Turbin does not make that cut.
Robert Turbin, no, because I think they touched Penny's ankle, so Turbin would have gone down. But I mean, if I'm being honest, I do think a lot of running backs make that cut. I think Chris Carson makes that cut. But
I'm a huge Carson fan. I don't think that's his game. I don't think cutbacks are Chris Carson's game. But I hear you. I mean, I disagree, but I know where you're coming from.
You got to make he made the play, right? Regardless of how many other running backs would make the play, he had to make the play. He made the play, scored a big touchdown. It's all good.
All right. So another big story in this game, Pete Carroll. I mean, we got to talk about Pete Carroll. So what did you think? There's 3 plays in particular that come to mind. If you have others, let me know. The throwing the flag, the challenge flag on the first PI against Michael Kendricks, throwing the flag on the second PI for Tyler Lockett, and then the decision to go for it on 4th down instead of kicking the field goal at the end of the game. So talk to me and be as honest as you can about where you were about each call before they happened and what you wanted to see happen.
So I completely missed the first one, so I can't speak to that at all. And then, unfortunately, I was getting mauled by kids on the second one. But all the replays I saw of the actual PI, I don't know about the actual PI.
Yeah.
And so that I'm going to give Pete a lot of credit, though, and say that he knew that the rest would see the helmet-to-helmet hit and maybe give him a makeup call. If that's a thought process, and he's just like, I think maybe we got a ticky-tack thing that they can go with, and clearly they just blew that helmet-to-helmet, and they got to make that right. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think he probably got a little lucky on that one. I don't know if he's gonna get that every time, but
you really think that that's what happened there? I mean,
I am surprised that the one with Flowers where they didn't overturn it because I guess I don't know, by the rule it was, and maybe the Tyler one by the rule was too, but they came out and said that he materially affected the play, and I just don't know that I believe that's true at all. So I suspect that if it came out that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And then going forward on 4th down, I'm a little bit of 2 minds on that one, because if you're going to be chicken on your 2nd and 18 play and just run the ball. Maybe if you had actually tried on that play, Russ would have picked up the 1st down on the next one. But if you are going to play conservatively and you're going to try to do this kind of 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or you're okay with 3 yards in a cloud of dust, then you need to be willing to go for it in those situations. And so I like the call. I don't know what the numbers say. Before
the call was made, were you expecting them to go for a field goal?
Field goal for sure. Yeah, I was shocked when I heard that they were lining up. So yeah, that was surprising. So it definitely felt like it was against the trend for him. I don't know what the numbers actually say there. I assume they say go for it, but I don't know. It only being a 2-point game makes that a little risky. But I was glad that they did it. I was glad that they were aggressive there.
Yeah, I mean, that was that was the big balls Pete kind of, that he's always talked about. And so that it was very much in line with his personality in that regard. And I think the idea that with one play, they could potentially essentially just win the game.
The thing with I was gonna say the thing with Big Balls Pete is he talks about it. People call him that. Like he's got that swagger. He doesn't coach that way. He is one of the most conservative play callers when it comes to fourth down and stuff like that. So he has that reputation somehow, but it's not actually true. So this really did go against the trend. Like that was significant. Just if you're looking at how he's made decisions previously.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to be okay with either decision. I mean, I was, my son and I were talking about it. I put out a poll beforehand just to see where people were. Majority of people were definitely say go for it, and that's kind of fans, generally are going to be aggressive that way, and then kill you if you don't get it. But look, like you said, fourth down, 1 yard to win the game, and if you're going to be a physical team and you can't do that, then like why are you creating that persona in the first place? So it was nice to see. I was glad to see Chris Carson get that play at the end. I don't know about you, Nathan. I was not sure that play was going to end in a first down when the ball was handed off. I thought that was going to be behind the line of scrimmage. And then
to me, it looked pretty good all the way.
I'm happy for your heart. My heart was
you got to catch Chris pretty far in the backfield on those. Like Carson converts those short yardage. I've never actually gone and looked at it. I think, or maybe I did, and he wasn't actually that special at it. But it just feels like he gets those a lot.
Yeah, it was. I mean, last year that was their thing. They were the best team in the NFL on third and fourth and short. Like they were the best team in the NFL. Those plays. They did not do so well on those. This game. There's a lot of Chris Carson almost had no negative runs last year, and he had his fair share today. I will say on those pass interference penalties, one, I thought they both were really bad challenges on first glance. I thought I'll be interested when you get a chance to see it. The first one, I'd be curious what the explanation is from the officials. I thought it was a totally reasonable call that they called defensive PI. And then in slow motion, it's clear that the receiver initiates the contact with the defensive player full on his chest. And even on the second replay, it almost looked like he was the only one that really initially created the contact. So I was a little bit surprised after seeing that more that that it wasn't overturned. I wasn't shocked, but at least I understood what Pete might have thought. And it was a pretty big play. Michael Kendricks should have never been in that situation. Like it was a throw that was never going to be completed. And I thought Kendricks had a pretty uneven game. But then the one to Lockett, I was super surprised. That was, if I'm a Steelers fan, I am livid about that call.
This is kind of it wasn't a Hail Mary, but it's kind of that situation, right? Where it was just third and long and Russ is just like, well, I got to do something, right? And then to give it to him, which they typically don't do, which is, again, maybe it wasn't just the PI that they looked at.
Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that they actually
It was bad though. It was
really bad.
It was awful. Like it wasn't just like something stupid in the backfield. Like he got crunched, and that dude. I think if the refs catch that, they probably eject him, right? For that hit.
Maybe that's a fair point. I mean, it was pretty bad. And I don't know how that they don't watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you not watch the quarterback, with the guy bearing down on him? It's kind of your job. But anyway, I thought Pete had an interesting day. And at the end I thought those were 3 absolutely crucial decisions by the head coach. And he came out on the positive side of 2 of those 3. And if he hadn't, I don't know if the Seahawks win this game. So, I mean, I don't think you give Pete credit for the win, but I think that those were pretty pivotal moments in the game. And each one of them either led to a touchdown or led to, the end of the game. So
I think the DK touchdown was the very next play, right?
Right. If not the next play, it was soon after. Yeah, it was very close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was big. All right. So let's talk about things that maybe didn't go as well, because there's a lot of those as well. Um, you go first. What comes to mind of like, all right, I was a little concerned about blank.
Um, well, I guess they're kind of related. Mason Rudolph looked pretty good. Um, that wasn't great. I mean, he was 12 of 19 for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. He threw a pick, but that was because Moncrief lost his hands and can't catch footballs anymore, apparently. So he kind of lit him up in situations that mattered. I mean, Seattle had a little bit of a lead, but you would think that they wouldn't want. You'd think that they would have hoped this game wouldn't have been so close, allowing Pittsburgh to score 13 points in the fourth quarter with their backup quarterback. So that was concerning. And then I think a part of that was the pass rush didn't look super great. And I think that they were a little lucky, again, that they were playing a backup, because there were plays where Rudolph just had ages and would just check down. There was one where he dumped off to the running back and it actually went for a loss. And, he had all day to do whatever he wanted back there. So I'm far from sold on this defense.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, you got to look at it and say, Chris Carson, 2 fumbles, led to 14 points. The Steelers offense was doing nothing. They had 100 yards at halftime. This could easily have been a very comfortable victory if the offense had not been turning the ball over like that. At the same time, I agree with you on the pressure. Like, the pass pressure started out actually really good. I thought they were around Ben Roethlisberger on almost every play. They weren't sacking him on every play, but they were making him move. He was having to double clutch. He wasn't comfortable in the pocket. And then it just got really, really slow. Whoever was back there was having time. And look, I was super happy to see Mason Rudolph in there. He looked scared to death in the first series, and he had this cocky smile, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see that rocked off his face. But if I'm being honest, look, none of us really know Mason Rudolph, or some people probably do. I don't know Mason Rudolph. I thought he made good throws. For the most part, he was finding the open guy, and he was making throws that were mostly on target. And he got helped by his receivers making some great catches. I mean, that guy, I think is Deontay Johnson, that one catch he made on 3rd down and 8, that was a poorly thrown ball, and he was falling down. I don't think he'll ever make that catch again, but that was a huge play in this game. Otherwise, I think it's not close. Juju Smith-Schuster had a big catch on that flea flicker, and by the way, Lano Hill bit. So that was, a notable play. Tedrick Thompson is not the only guy that's going to make mistakes back there. I don't know about you. I didn't see a lot of other plays where I was seeing Lano Hill do anything positive or negative. He had that, obviously, the quote interception on the 2-point play, but otherwise, I didn't have much of an opinion on how he played. Did you see anything otherwise?
I didn't notice much.
Yeah.
I mean, outside the pick, but yeah. I think that, Mason looked pretty good. Rudolph did. He made some nice throws. He definitely, the touchdown, right, where he actually did get pressured a little bit, and he looked pretty calm, collected, sidearmed it, got it to the tight end. That wasn't an easy play for him. But we just saw them make, Andy Dalton look real good, and Andy Dalton didn't look as good this week. So I don't know that it. Yeah, I'm a little concerned. Okay, so they play the Bengals close, and then the Bengals go on to lose 41-17. And then they just played Pittsburgh close. This one was on the road at least, but this is Pittsburgh coming off a 30-3 or 33-3 loss or whatever it is. So they're 2-0. It's good. They won on the road. They're taking care of business and all that. But some of the some of the other signs here are a little concerning.
I think that's a totally reasonable set of questions to ask. And if you're not asking those questions, then you're putting your blinders on as a Seahawks fan. I would also say that there's the potential, we don't know, but that 49ers defense was one of the top rated, if not the top rated defense in week one, by a lot of metrics. I think that 49ers defense is really good. And I've talked about it. The guys and I have talked about it. I think the 49ers are better than people realize. And I think they're going to be a tough team this year. That defensive line is monstrous. And I think their cornerbacks are pretty darn good. So we'll see if that's part of that story. I also think that there's a huge disadvantage playing the Bengals in week one with the new coach and not knowing at all what to expect. And I think the Seahawks played a really weird defense that I don't think that we'll ever see them play again, trying to figure out what was going to happen there. So that was part of it. I think that, the Seahawks defense is missing Ziggy Ansah, Jaron Reed, and Poona Ford. And they went on the road and they won in Pittsburgh. And they were playing Big Ben in the first half, and it was before he got injured, and they were shutting him down. Like, they were not getting anywhere. So, I mean, I did not see a lot of, the receivers were not making a lot of plays for the Steelers, especially early in that game. I thought coverage looked decent. So, I think either could be true. We do not have a large enough sample size of data yet to really know how good this team is.
I mean, ultimately, the thing that matters is that you're 2-0, right? You can transitive property it all day long, but you are what your record is. What happened to Roethlisberger? I heard that it wasn't really clear.
There was no clear injury of when it happened. By the way he was flexing his throwing arm, it looked like maybe a strain.
I would say with him going, what was he, 8 of 15 or something like that to start? I wonder if he went into that game not fully healthy.
It's possible. I mean, I think he also is historically known for faking injuries or over dramatizing injuries. So for a while, I was just assuming
when he does that though.
What's that?
He's famous for that, but when he does it, and he does it a lot, he doesn't actually come out of the game.
Right, that's what I was saying. I expected it to be another one of those situations. So I was pretty surprised that he didn't come back. And we'll see. I think they seem to have some reason to feel confident in Mason Rudolph. That might have played a role, but we'll see. A stat that just came out, I don't know if I just retweeted it, Nathan, but worth covering here. Next Gen Stats from the NFL says Russell Wilson's average time to throw was 1.89 seconds in this game. The quickest time to throw in a game by any quarterback since 2016, minimum 20 attempts.
I was told he's too short to throw fast.
I mean, this is a guy who had the third longest time to throw last year, over 3 seconds. So, that's a huge. I mean, that is a huge issue for defenses. Even if that's not core to their offense, they put it on tape today. Teams are going to have to know that that's something that they're capable of. And guess what that's going to do? That opens up double moves. That opens up more play action passes and other things because they do have to potentially respect those plays. And I think a lot of folks would have said that's exactly the kind of game this team was not going to be able to play without Doug Baldwin, right? That was Doug Baldwin's game. Timing.
He rarely played it with Doug Baldwin.
Right, but 2015 was the second half. That was the Doug Baldwin second half primarily. And he just went off because they were doing that. And so it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. 1.89 seconds to throw. Guess what? The Steelers had 0 sacks in the second half. And they only ended up with 6 quarterback hits on the day, which
the offensive line went out of the way to make up for it, though, by getting a couple holding penalties just for.
Can we talk about Jermaine Ifedi?
Well, hold up one sec on the last thing because I still want to write the post, but I will throw out. We talked about this in the group chat that looking at Russell's time to throw in week one, it was the percent of his passes that were thrown within 2.5 seconds. He was 34th of 38 qualifying QBs last year in time to throw. And his percent within 2.5 seconds was pretty low. But last week it was significantly higher. And if he had kind of held that rate, if his time to throw stayed the same, it would have ranked 11th best last year. So even last week, there were kind of hints of this, even if the game was overall pretty frustrating. But yeah, so now we've got another week under our belt. Another, 2 is still a pretty small sample, but we're getting bigger. And it's going down. It's going in the further in that direction of getting the ball out quickly. So this isn't just a 1 week thing. I don't expect him to get the ball out under 2 seconds on average the rest of the year, but like they're clearly doing something different this year.
So before I go, there's some breaking news I'll cover, non-specifically Seahawks related, but I want to guess from you. You know, you heard from Pete Carroll that he said one of these years Russell Wilson's going to complete 70% of his passes. What would you guess through 2 games his completion rate is?
70%.
78%.
Woo. Pretty good.
That's pretty darn good. So, breaking news, Drew Brees leaves the game against the Rams with an apparent hand injury and is questionable to return. Teddy Bridgewater is in the game.
That is a bummer. Obviously, that is going to help Seattle's chances if he doesn't play next week, but I really hope he's healthy. He's a lot of fun. Yeah,
I would really, really like to see Drew Brees come in. Like, talk about a great test for the defense and for the team overall.
Yeah.
I'm not cheering for Drew Brees to be hurt, but that's big news. I mean, not just for today's game, potentially for next week's game, and for the NFC playoff picture. I mean, if the Saints aren't the favorite in the NFC, they're certainly one of the top couple. So definitely something to watch.
So just through like 1.5 weeks so far, I mean, two weeks for the Seahawks, obviously, but like, who are the NFC favorites right now?
Well,
the Rams.
That's your own question. Who comes to mind for you?
I mean, the Rams and the Saints. Obviously, we'll see what's going on with Drew Brees and how healthy he is. Cowboys, they murdered somebody again this week, didn't they? Okay, they beat the Redskins by 10. Scored 31 points. So, yeah, Cowboys are up there for me right now. But I guess, the Packers are 2-0. I guess that's something. But they don't look.
Packers have got to be on that list.
Do they? I don't know.
I think they do because because the defense has actually shown up, 2 weeks in a row. It's not because Aaron Rodgers is great. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers has definitely taken a step back, but Aaron Rodgers with a really good defense makes them a contender.
I wouldn't put them in the favorites conversation, though.
I would take Green Bay over Dallas right now.
I don't want to get. I know. I mean, the Cowboys get just super overhyped, but
yep.
What Kellen Moore is doing looks really interesting, and that defense is legit talented. So I think for me, it's the Rams, it's the Saints. Obviously barring any kind of long-term injury to Brees, and then the Cowboys, and then I think my point was going to be that I think the Seahawks are right there, right? Like they're that next tier behind, and we'll see that as the season goes on if they can kind of jump up into that top tier. But yeah, then I think I'd have the Seahawks and maybe the Packers. But to me, yeah. Anyways,
I think you got to throw the 49ers in that mix. Any team that goes on the road and wins by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I mean, I don't care if that's a really bad team you're playing. They played 2 impressive games to start the year, and so they've got to at least be on the watch list.
Yeah, and we'll see about the Eagles too. So I guess there's still some competition.
Eagles, yeah,
not a juggernaut though conference this year. I don't think.
I don't think so. I mean, of all those teams, is there a team that you feel which team do you think would have the best chance to come into CenturyLink Field in the playoffs and win a game? Because realistically, if the Seahawks don't have home field advantage, I don't think any of us feel great about their chances of going that far anyway. So let's assume that they have home field advantage.
I feel like I should say the Saints, but they've just played them well. Mm-hmm. I think this is a different version of the Saints, and so we'll see if that holds true. But to me, it's still the Rams. I mean, until they beat them, right? I mean, it's kind of hard. You kind of got to give them the credit there. So to me, it's the Rams. I wouldn't feel good about them against the Saints. I picked them to lose against the Saints at home next week, so we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. There are 2 teams where I feel like where I'm more than 60%, in favor of that team to beat Seattle. And then everybody else is kind of yeah, I mean, Seattle at least has a good shot at them.
Yeah. Other news coming out now of the Rams-Saints game, Aaron Donald is on the sideline being looked at by trainers, lower back injury.
That's no good.
Yeah, so a lot going on there. So we can cover a couple more things here, and yeah, I can't believe they won. I'm just so happy that they won, dude. It's
Are
like
you are you worried at all about the fumbles?
at all, of course. Like Chris Carson had a fumbling problem in college, and then made some changes and didn't fumble the ball again after that. He did have, I think, a fumble. He had what appeared to be somewhat of a fumble problem either last year or his first year, but then seemed to correct it. And the first two fumbles that he had this season, last game, and then the first one of this, those were on him. Those are absolutely like the last one, it was a little hard for me to see from the different camera angles if he ever actually got the ball. Like the Nick Vanette sucks at blocking, and I mean, it's just awful. And the defender was right there. So even then, he no matter what, Carson bears some of the responsibility, but it's hard for me to put that one completely on him. So yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue. I mean, how worried about it are you?
Moderately. Like they typically don't play in a way that gives them a lot of tolerance on those kind of things. And so,
Sure.
that could be one that I think that they got away with one. I mean, both weeks, really, you can kind of say they got away with it. Like those are, they've now won by a combined 4 points, 5 points. So to do that with your running back giving up the ball 5 times seems a little lucky. But also maybe you can say that's probably not going to keep up. He's probably not going to have 32 fumbles this year or whatever that works out to, and so maybe some of these margins of victory will get a little bigger.
Well, that's the perfect microcosm of your worldview and my worldview and how we see these things differently. I look at last week's game as poorly as they played, and you've got Tedrick Thompson looking like a dumbass and running into the kicker on Cody Barton that were 10 points. Without that, even as badly as they play, they win by double digits. And that's not even including the fumble by Carson, I don't think resulted in any points in that game. But it is a cost of a possession that, that obviously was something they had to overcome. Then they had fumbles today. They had sacks they were giving up today, sacks they were giving up last week. You had, really bad penalties, holding penalties, defensive passing, like brutal, like a lot of things that it's rare to win on the road regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have all that go against you and still win, you could just as easily make. What's that?
Just goes to show how bad the Steelers are.
It could be that. It also could be that the Seahawks, like, we haven't seen their best yet. And I mean, Nathan, when you think about this defense, I know you have questions about it. How much of a difference do you expect once Ziggy Ansah, Poona Ford, and Jarran Reed are there? Like, I know that's a while. We might never see all those guys healthy. Who knows? But if they are, how much do you think that changes that defense?
I mean, that's obviously huge, right? Like Reed in the middle, able to get pressure, the pressure you can get from Ansah, right? Like they probably don't look as bad as they did at times rushing the passer today if they have those guys healthy, obviously. The only thing that really, is, a question for me is just, are they, like you said, are they going to actually have all those guys on the field healthy at any point this year? And that might not happen. But yeah, if they get that, and if they can get that at the right time, right, end of the year playoffs, then obviously that goes a long ways to helping this defense out.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. I thought that we saw some of the effects of not having Poona Ford in today in the second half with the runs up the middle. I think Brian Monet and Quentin Jefferson, he's like a rush defensive tackle. He is not a guy that's meant to be in there for that many snaps. And Al Woods, so I thought that would have been different to me. I think there would have been fewer of those runs up the middle in the second half if they had a reasonable rotation at defensive tackle. Pass rush wise, I don't know. Like, God, it seems like we will see Ziggy Ansah next week. That's the freaking word. Of course, we were told that they're counting on him for week one, and I can't imagine what would keep him from not playing week one and all these other Pete Carrollisms that ended up being
totally healthy, but he's
actually,
inactive.
I thought you meant week 3. Like, that pissed me off. So yeah, I mean, look, we don't know what we don't know, but 2-0 with a game on the road in Pittsburgh, they've never scored a point in the stadium before, right? Like,
no, they have. It's just been a really long time.
No, they had never scored a point in Heinz Field. They scored in. Yeah, they played 2 games. They've been shut out both times by a score of 45-0. So, they put up 28 points on the road, and with all of those problems. And look, Jermaine Ifedi, dude.
Yeah, he is not. He is not carrying the momentum forward from last year.
Yeah, I mean, you were kind of on the bandwagon a little bit. Am I remembering right that he was maybe like a better player? I know Ben Baldwin's been really banging that drum.
Yeah. Ben's been all over it. Not looking great for Ben right now. I thought that he did look improved, and there were definitely things you could point to say he was.
I did too. I'll admit that.
But anyone who knows me for a variety of reasons would have guessed that I was cautiously optimistic about Ifedi's. I was not on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I hear you, dude. All right. Well, the only other thing I'll say is, I was really happy to see them give CJ Prosise an opportunity in the 2-minute drill. Didn't end up being a massive part of the game. I thought he looked good. I'm just glad to know that they're going to give him that role. And he did what he was supposed to do. I mean, he looked fine. I felt like the play calling at the end of the half there was really questionable and really blew what should have been a surefire, set of points. Of course, if Evan was here, I'd ask him, like, I'm pretty sure Jason Myers, like, one of the reasons he's here is to hit those 58-yard field goals, and I thought that was going to go in, so it didn't. And I will tell everybody, my boss at work was, like, asking me about Jason Myers, and I gave him, I actually gave him my vote of confidence. I was like, oh, yeah, he's got a big leg. The Seahawks field goals all the time. He'll be a great pickup. So I'm not taking heat from my boss. So I am officially on the Jason Myers watch. I want that guy to start hitting his field goals for a variety of reasons.
Well, don't tell anybody, but I had the same idea and also have him on my fantasy team. What does Pete like more than laying up for a long field goal at the end of the half and the end of the game? So
yeah. Oh man. All right, dude. Anything else? Closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I mean they're 2-0. That's awesome.
Man, I was telling my wife last night, or maybe even this morning. I was like, it used to be that when the Seahawks lost, I just had my week was ruined. I just literally couldn't. I was just so bummed the whole time, and it was a whole week till they played again. And I've gotten a lot better. I used to be like, they lost, you could not talk to me the rest of the day. I was very immature about it. It's just who I was. And I've gotten a lot better, but now still, even when they lose, and I expected, I'll be honest, I expected them to lose today. We all on the show predicted them to lose.
Yep.
And when they lose, it's just like, oh man, the whole week just feels a little bit less, good. But then when they win, it's feels like you got a little extra pep in your step. And so the difference between my general mood for the rest of the week is such a big change, and I can't change it anymore. I've done as much as I can. This is as mature as I'm going to get about it. And dude, it's going to be a nice week. I'm going to enjoy this.
The exact opposite. This is going to make me so stressed out all week long.
Really?
It'll be fine. But now they're 2-0, and now it's like, well, shit. Now they need to win, and I'll have knots in my stomach all week because they're.
Well, you got to feel good at least about your bet with DK Metcalf. I mean, you're looking like you got Nachos is pretty well sewn up. Nachos and margaritas. He was 7 targets today, second on the team. I don't see anybody challenging him among the wide receivers for number 2 in targets.
Okay, so I think you made a big mistake here. I would not have taken that bet if you just said on the team, right? But you limited it to receivers, which I think was a pretty fatal mistake. Where do you think he's actually going to end up on relative to the entire team, including tight ends, running backs, George Fant?
With what we know now, I think he probably will still end up second.
Well, I think he's at least third right now with Carson, right? Carson still.
No, I don't think so.
Carson had like 8 targets last week. And
yeah, but DK had 6. Carson had 3 today. DK had 7.
No, DK only had 3 catches. I don't know how many targets Carson got.
7.
Oh, he did.
7 targets for Metcalf, 3 targets for Carson.
Okay, so now he's probably okay. So yeah, okay, he might still. Disley got 5 catches. I don't know how many targets he had.
He had 5 targets. I mean, that was one other thing we didn't talk about. I mean, the tight ends today, in terms of other than Vanette blocking, which is a disaster, Disley was a big factor in this game.
You gotta at least say something nice about Nick Vanette. There's one easy, nice thing to say about him. That was a hell of a catch.
That ball.
Yeah, that was a hell of a catch.
It was a hell of a catch. He took a big hit. Disley had 2 touchdowns. We haven't even mentioned him, dude. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't even have to be great. And as much as I really did like watching George Fant play, the difference between Fant and Disley as a receiving threat is like
that can catch the ball and offensive linemen. It's so big.
It's a huge difference. I mean, it's just a huge difference. I mean, Disley is I think an underappreciated key part of this team, and just gives them a little bit more optionality in how they run their offense. And the dude is reliable and tough, and like, man, he had some big catches today. So yeah. I mean, I don't even know how we got on this, but yes, I do. I think Metcalf is a safe bet for number 2 on receiving targets. And I think we should maybe have that discussion about whether we need a secondary bet here about whether he will be second in overall targets, because maybe I'll go the opposite direction and I'll be the one that will say that he will be second in overall targets to try to get some nachos back my way. I don't know.
I'm not quite ready to go there for the entire team.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. So, all right, dude, this was great, and have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Hawks.